In this episode, we're going to talk about the nervous system and how to self regulate. And some of you might be hearing that a lot out in the world, regulate your nervous system. Some of you might not know what that even means. Regulate what? Nervous system what? I'm chuckling because I'm hearing the song by Warren G. Regulate. Do, 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 do. That's not the kind of regulate we're talking about. But if you think about our nervous system, this is almost what drives us in the way that we're functioning and navigating in the world as a human. So we've got the sympathetic nervous system, which is a state of fight, flight, freeze, when you're really, really stressed and just on high alert. So that's going to be the sympathetic nervous system. And then the parasympathetic is where we're resting, right? Where we feel a sense of peace, where we feel a sense of calm. So if you are operating in that sympathetic nervous system, you're not necessarily going to be making clear, grounded choices. You might feel on edge. You might have a lot of anxiety. And what you really want to do is move yourself into that parasympathetic state. And look at our world, though. If we look at society and just like the overstimulation and just it's like the overstimulation, the instant gratification, the hustle, the go, 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 things coming at us 24/7. So a lot of folks are operating in that sympathetic nervous system. And it's nobody's fault. There's no right or wrong for that. It's just there's a lot that we're constantly being bombarded with. And if you don't have the skills or the tools to work with it, like I said, if you're in the sympathetic nervous system, it's fight, flight, freeze. You can't see the way out of that. And people are going to cope with stress in many different ways. I know for myself personally, I struggled, and I've talked about this before, but I've struggled with addiction and substance use, drugs, alcohol for a large part of my life, a huge part of my life. And upon reflection, that could have been a different way of coping with stress that I wasn't even aware of at the time. I know some of it was due to being a very highly sensitive person. So picking up on energies and just, being in tune to the energetics of environments and people and different situations. So that helps me cope as well. But I did turn to substances for a large part of my life. But at the same time, that coping mechanism is only temporary because it's numbing you, right? So I wouldn't necessarily recommend that as the go-to calming agent. Not going to judge anybody that chooses that, though, because I've been there and I've walked that, and that has its own complexities to it. So what we really want to be in is that parasympathetic state where we're feeling calm, where we're feeling at peace, where we're feeling relaxed. And the importance, though, in being able to self-regulate, we're going to repeat that, be able to self-regulate your nervous system. When you're in that state of empowerment to self-regulate your nervous system, there's no outsourcing from things beyond you or you can co-regulate with people, but you don't want to create codependency in that regulation. So really to look at what are the ways that you yourself can create that state of coherence within your being and self-regulate your nervous system on your own. And I'm speaking on this because there's been times where I have been in those high stress states and was not able to regulate, just so anxious. I didn't actually realize that I had anxious tendencies until more recently, where I would get, like, maybe the last couple of years, I could see it more clearly. I never knew that I was an anxious person or I could be an anxious person. I always just assumed I was more of an avoidant. Like if it's the fight, the flight, the freeze, like I'm peacing out. Bye. I'm just gonna like check out, turn into a hermit and process that way. So that is another way people can self-regulate, though, taking that time. But there's a difference between avoidance and then choosing to create that space for yourself to process and create that sense of regulation within the system. So one of my favorite techniques, and people that have worked with me and Path of the Heart, oh my gosh, we do the heart coherence breathing. So this has had scientific studies. So if you've heard of Heart Math Institute, you know what I'm talking about. If you have not heard about Heart Math Institute, I would highly recommend looking them up. They've got a lot of free resources. They've got videos. I even believe they've got some free trainings where you can practice the heart coherence breathing. And what that really does is, when there's all of that noise and all of that chaos that could be happening externally, but also internally, if you've got all the mind going and just all of this noise and chaos, it's getting you to bring your focus and your attention into the chest and into the heart space. So it's almost like just pulling all of your awareness. So if there's that noise and that chatter and everything, just pulling all of your awareness into the chest and into the heart, and really focusing on the heart space. And then what you're doing with that, because the breath work will just pull you into that state. Sometimes it just takes 3 breaths. So things like return to the breath. So often I've got clients that aren't breathing. It's like you're not actually breathing. You're just like, you're so tight and tense and you're holding your breath. And you know what though? I've been there. I have been there where there were years of me not breathing and I didn't even know, so it's just to become more aware and connected to your body. So breath can bring you into that more calm, relaxed state. But with the heart coherence breathing, you have your awareness and your focus in the chest and in the heart. And it's envision, it's like your heart would be your lungs. So you'd be breathing in through the heart and out through the heart. So that's getting you out of your mind, having all of your presence and all of your awareness in the chest and in the heart. And it's breathing in through the heart. And something that's really fascinating. So once again, Heart Math Institute. Something that's been really fascinating with their studies is we have an electromagnetic field. Each and every one of us has this electromagnetic field that surrounds our body. So as we're in different environments, we're interacting with the environment beyond what you could be physically touching, right? So that's in your electromagnetic field. But that heart coherence breathing, when you're doing things like, let's say you're breathing in through the heart and breathing out through the heart, you're breathing in peace and breathing out peace. You're breathing in calm, you're breathing out calm, breathing in joy. See where we're going, breathing out joy. You're actually, so not only bringing yourself into that parasympathetic state, it's almost like you've now then infused or programmed your electromagnetic field with that resonance. So the resonance of peace, the resonance of calm, the resonance of joy. And what in turn that has the ability to do is then attract more of the peace and the calm and the joy. Because have you ever had a day, like let's use this as an example. Have you ever had a day, and let's say you wake up, you stubbed your toe, you hurt, the first thing you wake up, you stub your toe and grumble, grumble, grumble. Oh, that hurt. But then, so you're in that state, you woke up, you're in that state, and then your coffee, your coffee boils over, your pot boils over, and then you're out driving and everybody is just stressed and nothing's going right and you're late, and it's just like, but if we look at it outside of all of those situations, that initial start of the day, of the chaos and the pain and the hurt, has just become amplified. And then because that is operating within your field, it's attracting more of that. And it's just setting the tone for your day. And I'm laughing because I know you know what I'm talking about. So even in those moments, let's say, for example, okay, you wake up, you stub your toe, you hurt it. in that moment, like to acknowledge the pain, the frustration of it, but then to reset. How can you reset that situation to not invite other chaos and confusion and havoc into your world? You could do some heart breathing. So this is just one example, and I know you know what I'm talking about with just giving you that little example of starting your day off on the wrong foot, quote unquote wrong foot, and then it just snowballs, right? And then there's those other days where you wake up feeling glorious, and the same things could have happened to you. Let's say almost you just didn't stub your toe, but the same things, everything that could appear to not be going right is not phasing you as much because the tone has been set in a different way. So when we're able to come into that self-regulation, it's not avoiding, it's not ignoring. We're taking the power and ability to use our body and to work with our body. Our body is a magnificent instrument. And it's finely tuned. It's finely tuned to different frequencies, different intentions. And we do have the power within ourselves with the self-regulation, because there can be external interferences. We're in the world with other humans. There's strangers. You have family. You've got more intimate relationships. Sometimes people aren't going to show up in the way that you would like them to show up. Might not have anything to do with you. They might be going through their own thing and needing to regulate, and then you could be thinking, what did I do wrong? Oh, da, 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 da. No, you did, like, you put that in check. Everybody is going through their own things. Everybody's going through their own struggles. And this is why it's important, as you going through your own things and your own struggles, of how can you source that regulation within yourself. So the heart coherence breathing is a phenomenal one. You could even put your hands on your chest and on your heart. So that's one way. But the breathing, just breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth, but longer breaths, not rapid breathing. Maybe you would breathe in to the count of 4, exhale to the count of 4, and then perhaps breathe into the count of 4, exhale to the count of 6, just elongating the breath, because it gets you out of the reptilian brain, that primal fight or flight state within the brain. So breath work is so important. And we touched on this a little bit, like getting connected into your body, because a lot of the time there can be disassociation that happens when you're stressed, where you just check out. It's like the fight or the flight. Those are very reactive. Okay, the fight or flight is just super reactive, where you're not necessarily always being rational. Okay, reaction isn't necessarily rational. And I'm just going to say that is a lesson that I have been learning time and time again. Everything is awareness. I didn't realize I was a reactive person really probably until February of 2024. I was doing The Presence Process by Michael Brown. I love that book. It's a 10-week journey of really deepening into presence and self-awareness, and looking at where you might get triggered and, origin of that, and doing that book as a self-paced program for myself really opened up my eyes to see, oh wow, like how reactive I was when I thought I would respond more. So yeah, when you're reactive, you're not necessarily as rational as you could be, and so there's the disassociation from that. And then even those freeze modes, where you can't even do anything. You can't think. It's almost like the body even becomes immobilized. Like maybe you want to sleep. You check out of actually being interactive in your life. Like it's almost like where the stress and the anxiety is too much that you shut down. It's just like the plug. If you were a battery, it's just like you got unplugged and systems down. So it is important to reconnect with the body, to either kind of create some movement, even like once again touching your heart, touching your body, stretching, but also incorporating the breath to it, just to get you back into your body. And when you're back in your body, you're in the present moment, right? Because once again, if you're high anxiety, high stressed, like fight or flight or overactive mind, I got to do this, I got to do that, or just completely checked out, once you get your back, once you get yourself back into your body and like that conscious connection with your body, then you're in the present moment. And then when you're in the present moment, you can kind of connect more clearly to how you're feeling. We don't need to dissect what we're feeling. Like, please know that. And so often it's like, why is this happening? Why do I feel this way? Like human nature, we just want to know, we want to understand, but and it's not that that won't come, but maybe in the moment, that's not what's necessary. You just need to get yourself in your body. You just got to breathe. You got to get yourself in your body. Nature, going out in nature. Whoo, even for those of you that are in cities, can you get yourself to a park, right? Can you get yourself into some sort of green space? Can you get yourself in the backyard where there's grass, right? Just to plug back in to Mother Earth, to plug back in to nature, which we are a part of. So that's huge too. So many people say they feel better when they're out in nature. It's almost like everything that could be going on in the world, it reminds you how small we really are in that bigger picture when you're looking at all of God's creation. And it's just that nature is very grounding. So that's another thing, like to be grounded and anchored back into the body, of course, but then like reconnection to God, source divine, to nature, can help to self-regulate. And things to also be aware of, because the mind, remember, the mind can be really loud, the mind can be chaotic. We were talking about earlier, like everybody is going through their own thing. Like as a human, we are complex beings. We've got our lives and our experiences. So you've got your lives, your experiences, and then you got other people in your life. But like everybody's got their own things going on. It's a fact of life. Everybody's got their own things going on. And sometimes what is going on externally where you could be affected has nothing to do with you. Like people are dealing with their own things. I've had many conversations with clients where, they can internalize how someone's reacting to them, treating them or not treating them. And a lot of the time it gets internalized. But let's say, for example, like this has come up a lot for clients where they're so present with their friends, they get them all the attention and on and on and on, but then their friends don't show up for them in the same way, or the relationship would not keep going on if they didn't keep reaching out to them. And there can be that internalization of, what did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? Stories from childhood. But once again, if we're going into that state of everybody's got their own things going on, that person might not be able to receive the love that you are in this now moment. They might not have the capacity to have meaningful conversations in the way, or meaningful relationships in the way that you want them. They might not have the capacity or bandwidth to have that emotional depth. And it's nothing against them. It's nothing against you. And so to not internalize those things as well. And this is where you would work with the mind, asking yourself in different situations of, what is the truth of this situation? And sometimes the mind can take you on wild rides. You're like, I did not sign up for this road trip. Where are we going, mind? So it's just to really check in with yourself and your mind and your thoughts and what's going on. Because so often, gosh, the things that your mind creates aren't even real. I've worked with so many people, and I have been guilty of it too, where you just create all of these scenarios, and sometimes it's like best case scenario, worst case scenario, but nonetheless, it's just a hypothesis. Like it's not the reality of the situation, but then you've created this dialogue within yourself and the story that isn't actually true. So in those moments when you're going in a spin, it's to stop, to pause, to breathe. What about this situation is my truth in this now moment? What about this situation do I know to be true? And when you're putting truth, when you're spotlighting truth in there, that takes a different tone because it's not what you think, right? If you go into your truth. So really being aware of your mind, your racing thoughts, journaling can be beneficial, just writing everything out to get it out of your mind and out of the body. Once again, where we said movement, like being able to create movement as well, just to get things flowing, moving and flowing and going. Because we are in such a fast-paced society and there is so much on the go, and it is like we're being bombarded all of the time. Boom, 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 boom. What can you do within yourself to know that you have the ability to self-regulate? So you've received some suggestions here, and the first step of it all is awareness. I just say this time and time again with everything that I teach in classes with clients when we're working one-on-one. Awareness is the key to everything, because what you don't know, you don't know. You might not be able to actually have fulfilling, restful sleeps because you're so wound up. So awareness is the key. First, it's to acknowledge, am I in my parasympathetic? Or am I in my sympathetic nervous system? So sympathetic is stress, fear, anxiety, fight, flight, freeze. Parasympathetic is the rest and the digest, the calm, the peace. So identifying where you are helps because now you know what you're working with, and then asking yourself, if in this moment, what could I do? And sometimes, honestly, the freeze one can be hard because you literally, it's like it is like your body has shut down. I'm speaking from personal experiences as I'm describing it. It's like you get unplugged and your energy is drained and depleted, and you just check out. You're either disassociated from your body or you're like sleeping and sleeping, and you can't engage with life in the world. So in those moments, like, you're gonna have to push yourself a little bit more and to come out of that spin. I would recommend breathing, like something that I found very helpful for myself. I would put a hand on my chest, on my heart, and then a hand just below the lower dantian, so about 3 fingers below the belly button, and just do some breathing that way. And that can kind of help, because once you get more of that oxygen flow too, like that is reinvigorating to the body. But in those moments, the key thing is to identify where exactly you are on that spectrum, so to speak, of sympathetic or parasympathetic, and then start to incorporate the tools, because we don't have to stay in these states, and you might keep bouncing back into them, but the more that you become comfortable with the self-regulation, the more that you put that into practice, you'll see more clearly when you're in those states and then how to work through it to come out of it.